Oh
You've
my,
been,
okay, so I've got a story for you, by the way. You'll never guess what happened.
what? Am I meant to guess?
So I took my wife to the hospital for a routine appointment. Just dropped her off, right? So I parked up. She's in the like quick drop off thing.
Mm.
She's got out of the car and she's gone to her appointment. Fantastic. Just waited a little minute and then I was like, right, once she's in, I'll make sure she's got the right day and all that stuff because she's an idiot. And it turns out she did have the right day and her appointment was there. So I said, I'll come back and get you in 2 hours. Fine. As I've reversed out of the bay, right? So I've reversed out the bay, and then I'm ready to drive off down the road. All of a sudden, no, that's a gunshot. Hang on, bang, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Right? And then I look to my left, and basically there's a car like parked in the side of my car. And I was like, well, this is
that meant to be there?
So what it turns out is in the drop-off bays that I'm in, it's like a one-way road, so there's only one width for one sort of ambulance, if you like, 'cause it's a hospital. And then the left-hand side is disabled parking, and the right-hand side is non-disabled, just drop-off. So I've reversed out of my drop-off parking and stuff, and then somebody in the disabled bay from the other side has just reversed out straight into the side of the car. Yeah, so... One, I'm glad my missus wasn't in the car because it would have been her side of the car that took the kind of brunt of it. But yeah, so a couple of witnesses said like this is ridiculous. Like they kind of gave me their details and said like you weren't at fault, sort of thing. Because obviously it's the back of her car in the side of mine.
Yours. Yeah,
like literally beside, like 2 door panels are absolutely sausaged. Yeah, it's weird though. Like she had a big ass Nissan and it's like a tiny little dent on the back of her thing. Like you'd barely even notice it, and then mine's like, yeah, it's probably gonna be a write-off.
Wow! After you spent all that money on,
yeah. After I spent £2,500 to repair it, I get about 2 months of use out of it, and then 3 months of use out of it, and then I'm back.
Next time, don't get a car with other car magnet. That's what I'm trying to say.
Car magnets, yeah. I think what it was, to be honest, I think she wanted my number and she was a bit scared to ask me. So what's the easiest way to get someone's number?
Car crash riz. Yeah. That's sort of trauma.
Donna.
You don't know.
Her name was Donna. Not the dirty bit, I made it up. Her name's actually Donna. So she was very nice, bless her, and she was very apologetic. So I didn't have any road rage. I didn't, smack her up or anything. I was just like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you're alive to tell the tale. You survived it.
Did I do a shout out last time to one of our listeners who dropped us a message on Instagram? I feel like I did.
I don't think so.
So Kieran has messaged us on our socials, and it was really nice actually.
What's our socials?
I don't know, mate. You're the CEO of segmentation. Let me have a think.
I'm not the CEO of socialness.
I mean, we've got an X account that we can't use because it's associated to a rather naughty football club
group.
Yeah. So that's out of the question. We've got 2lukes1sip@gmail.com as our email address, and then we've got our Instagram, which is it _let's talk procurement _ or let's _talk _procurement.
That one.
Okay, yeah. Let's _talk _procurement. And that is where Kieran reached out, so it's very nice. Thank you, Kieran. Hope you are having a lovely day. And she said, I've really enjoyed the podcast. The psychology in procurement was particularly interesting. Keep going with it. I think it's really different. And she's actually said she's laughing at the podcast. So I need to find more details on that specifically, because if she finds you funny, then we've got a problem.
If she finds me funny, she can go in the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Shame, I think. The second corridor that we haven't opened yet.
Isn't my mum in the Hall of Shame?
Oh, yeah, Denise is in the Hall of Shame.
Yeah. Speaking of, I was just speaking to her, and I said I've got to go because I'm going to go record a podcast, and she said, say hi to you. She said, say hi to Luke I. I was like, what does Luke I mean? Luke inferior.
No way did she say that.
She
You're
did.
absolutely chatting rubbish. She would
She did
never
say
say
that. You think I could come up with that?
100%. You've been thinking about that for weeks.
We haven't actually recorded for a few weeks, haven't we?
Yeah, so you've had plenty of time to come up with your genius idea. Luke I.
We did do a previous recording. That was yeah, we had to scrap that one, didn't we?
It was a bit too much of a hot topic, shall we say?
Too close to home. Well, too.
Hopefully not. But yeah, just we didn't want to get cancelled, well and truly. So Kieran gave us some episode ideas as well, and I think actually we could probably cover one today. So a couple of suggestions, and one that, well, there's two that kind of stick out to me. One was how to grow your procurement career, and another one was how to deal with senior stakeholders. So not just any old stakeholder, a senior one. How are you in general, despite being under the weather? Everything good at work? Still got a job?
I do still have a job. I've been fighting for it. Yeah, I have been fighting for it. There's a couple of times where they said, we can't keep you working here because you're too attractive. You're making all the suppliers drop their prices to an unreasonable amount, and all our suppliers are going bust because they're just giving us the biggest discount. So I end up having to say to suppliers, no, charge me more. I don't want it for that cheaper price. Make it more expensive.
So you're making our suppliers bust?
Yes.
Over how attractive you are?
I am, indeed.
This is a problem.
Yeah. It is a hard life, but, someone's got to do it. It's like how they say, it's lonely at the top, isn't it? It's lonely when all your suppliers go bust.
Absolutely, because you've got no supply. Well, I'm glad you're having good problems.
Yeah. Also, bad problems as well. Talking about denting cars, I lent my car to my mum the other day, and she crashed it. Didn't do as much damage as what it sounds like your car is damaged to, but just a little scrape on the bumper. So
did she reverse into someone at Watford General?
Yeah, and she said she saw him reversing out of the space and then just floored it and thought, that looks like a sort of bouncy car.
Yeah.
Let's give it a go. No,
she did yell, Luke 10 is actually Luke 1. He's the only Luke, you bastard, or something like that. Yeah. I couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, then something about being inferior, but
yeah,
we'll take it.
No, but that's got me thinking. Should we get a LTP car?
You want a company car?
Yeah. Maybe some sort of sharing agreement that we have. I'll have it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturday, Sunday. You can have it on.
Brilliant.
You can have it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Brilliant. I'm actually up for that. I think it needs to be something practical, like a Fiat 500 or a KA. You've got that sort of town driving. You can probably get LTP1 number plate. Yeah.
Could we get some eyelashes on it, maybe?
Yeah. And a QR code on the roof.
Yeah. We could get a little fleet of them going. Like police cars, get them written on the top of the car. PC Plod 1, LTP
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I remember back in the old days when AI was taking off. This is on a tangent. That's my anticipation for us releasing this in about 3 weeks. The AI hype will have died down by 3 weeks. It won't be a thing anymore.
Mate, you're delusional. You're getting replaced by AI as soon as I find the right agent. You're gone.
So back when AI used to be a thing, I asked it to make a picture of Luke 10. I said something like, make a car that Luke 10 from Let's Talk Procurement would have, and it was a Rolls Royce. So maybe that says, we should dig in the pockets a bit deeper.
Was that without wheels?
Yeah, it was a tiny little toy car, but yeah. The listeners don't know that I'm actually 3 inches tall.
So you're huge then?
I'd say that's above average. Probably too tall, to be honest.
Yeah. No wonder why you got sold that big chair.
Anyway, I should return the question. How are you? Are you settling into life as a international world famous stripper, pole dancer?
I don't remember settling into that, but can go for it. Yeah, I've got the. I don't know. I was gonna say I've got the rhythm of something with no rhythm, but I can't think of anything with no rhythm other than me. So, rhythm poles. Best I could do is probably just be the pole. I think that's the kind of capability that I'd bring to that scenario. Right.
There are worse jobs for poles though, and I'm not talking about Polish people. I think being a fireman's pole would be worse than being a stripper's pole. What other poles are there? Scaffolding, that'd be pretty bad. Heavy weight bearing. Although responsibility and maybe therefore job satisfaction, because your job is there to make sure a building doesn't fall over. How many people can say that? No, not many people.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know where you've got this brain power from today. I'm quite impressed.
Is that the word you're using?
Did I say impressed or depressed? I can't remember which one I used, but it's one of those. So, yeah, no, look, I'm doing all right. I'm not stripping, but I'm still living. And I think we should look at, because this is especially relevant to yourself, and obviously a listener question as well, is about growing yourself in your procurement career. How do you become the ultimate procurement professional? And obviously that's what this whole podcast is about, right? We are teaching you lovely listeners and you, Luke 10, even though that's way harder than teaching a primary school student, how to reach the pinnacle of procurement. And I have to confess, I'm not there yet either, but it's a journey we're all on. And I think, like you said earlier, it's lonely at the top, but let's help some of our listeners get to the top. Let's help you at least take a step upwards, because right now you're rock bottom.
Every single listener. Is that what we've decided as our target market? Like, if you're having to listen to us, then probably something's not going right in your procurement career.
Well, I mean, look, the goal was to always help people with, if they're doing their CIPS or they just don't have a clue what procurement is. Just we talk about the high level topics, the kind of the fundamentals of procurement, a bit about what's going on, what the trends are. But in doing that, if you do these basics, if you listen to content out there, it helps you.
Yeah. Maybe we should start with how people get into procurement. So yourself, you did a degree in economics, I want to say.
I did. Damn.
You did. So there's that route. A sort of someone who wanted to do something different and then realised actually procurement's all right, and then transferred. There's other people that did procurement degrees, like our previous episode that hasn't been released yet, that will be released soon in our time, but previously
before
in
you
time.
Hear this.
Yeah. The episode with Lauren, who did a master's in procurement, didn't she?
She did.
Bachelor's and then a master's in procurement. And there's my way, where I did an apprenticeship in procurement. And I learnt the skills on the job. Well, still learning. What are there any other ways?
I think
what other ways can there be?
the other way is the unintentional found myself in procurement because I joined a company doing A, B, or C, and then I realised that procurement had opportunity, or it was something that aligned better to my skill set than what I was previously doing. So I then moved over into a procurement role and progressed from there.
Yeah, and some people say in procurement one of the best things is that you get to interact with more senior stakeholders, and you get to not necessarily be a decision maker, but be a sort of decision advisor. Is that a term? So I think that also helps people grow their careers, right? Because then they're going from, it could be quite a junior member of staff, member of the procurement team, presenting a report or a recommendation on the financial status of a company, for example, to a senior manager, which then helps them make a decision. So I think you're bound to grow if you take opportunities like that, right? If you're taking opportunities to interact with more senior members of not only the procurement team but also the wider business.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think in a business like that, you know, if you've got those opportunities to present or to put forward your recommendations to a senior executive team or to management or whatever it is, that's great exposure. But what I would say is a big bit of kind of advice, at least from my perspective, is to kind of A, make sure you're doing your preparation, but B, think about it from their perspective. So a lot of people in other departments have different goals and kind of, I guess, things that are driving their side of the business, and you need to make sure that you're aligning to it as well. Obviously, you could be presenting a supplier that's an extreme risk, but on the face of it, is it either using that supplier that is extremely risky, or having no business opportunity at all on those suppliers and kind of you're basically just crushing their dreams. So you've just got to think about the wider situation. And I think if you come at it with that kind of balanced approach, you then get appreciated a bit more, and then that will kind of help you develop in your continued exposure to kind of senior people and wider opportunities.
Yeah, I guess you've got to remember that they've got a tough job, right? They need to hit their target, and then they'll get basically like 3 times your salary as a bonus. So there's a lot riding on it for them. No, but seriously, they do. Some people say, what's the phrase again? Don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions or options, or whatever the phrase is. Do you agree with that being one of the ways that you should think about things when talking to senior stakeholders? Like, don't say I've got this problem with the supplier. Say I've got this problem with supplier. Here's option A, B, and C that I think we could do.
To a degree, you don't want to over solution if it's not necessarily in your gift to solution. If it's a technical issue, then I would definitely not be trying to solution something that's technical. But if there are alternative providers, I might recommend alternatives. If say they're financially unstable, I could put a suggestion to say, well, maybe we can go and get a parent company guarantee, or maybe we can look to get the software put into escrow. That puts it into holding. So if the company goes bust, we can then take ownership of that software. Obviously, not all companies will agree to that, but you can suggest those alternatives that will help reduce the risk. And it's just about preparation. I think when you're going in at that sort of level. I mean, stepping back a little bit, I guess to progress your procurement career, you probably come in as a junior buyer, an analyst, a procurement assistant, a buyer, something along those lines. They're probably the entry level roles in general, and then you'd be looking to go to a category manager, a senior buyer, supply chain manager, that sort of middle level. And then, of course, the ones everybody wants, which is head of procurement, your supply chain directors, your CPOs. And I think entry level to mid level, probably progressing through those tiers, I would say consider the environment that you're in. So does your environment have that opportunity for you to progress? are there examples in your team where you've got someone who's gone from a buyer to a senior buyer, or a procurement analyst to a category manager? If that's something your company is supporting, then you're in the right environment to kind of grow yourself as well. If you look around and you think, well, I'm the only buyer here, and then everybody else is a senior buyer, but nobody's moved up from buyer for like 3 years or whatever. Nobody, there's not been any progression. It's a relatively stale environment. You might want to consider if you're in the right place for your own personal growth.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, and I'm seeing this because my friends I seem to have started work before my friends, but my friends are now finishing uni and starting jobs and things, and they're working for their first companies. And I think it's tough for them to know, are they working for a good company, or is the company they're working for just saying, oh yeah, we're the best company out there, you're not going to find anyone else?
Yeah.
So what, if you're looking to grow your career, is there anything else you should be taking into account from the perspective of the actual organization you're working for?
Yeah, so what you see as a good organization and what I see as a good organization and your mates see as a good organization is different for everybody, right? We've all got different priorities. For you, it might be working from home 5 days a week. For your mate, it could be being in the office 5 days a week and meeting different teams. Or category management might be really important to your friend, whereas for you would rather be a bit more of a generalist. So you have to kind of think about what you want from your career. Like, are you ambitious? Do you want to be a head of procurement? Do you want, and are you in an organization that at least can help you get in the right direction? I mean, do you look at your manager and think, that's somebody that I could see myself becoming, in a way? I know it sounds really weird and kind of corny, but it's like, if I look at the head of procurement in the company I work for, I think, he's great at his job, and I think actually if I can review contracts the way he does, or if I can learn from him, then I see it as a positive, right? Because I'm surrounded by positive people at a higher level. Whereas if I looked at him and I thought, he's an absolute fraud, he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's just there because he's been in the company for 25 years, then I myself would probably feel a bit more resentful about it as well. I probably wouldn't be as into it. So I think the company has to be good, but it doesn't have to be the best, I would say. I think, especially at the end,
people.
Yeah. You come in, can you see people that have progressed? Can you see a manager that you think you can learn from? Because everyone's got different learning styles. So if you find a manager or someone at a senior level who you think you've got the right skills, I would highly, highly recommend asking them for advice. How did you get to where you are in your career? How did you get this far? What tips do you have for me as someone just starting out? And most people will prefer to help somebody than do their day job, right? Because it's self-gratification, it's rewarding, it's different to just constant, supplier stuff. So, don't be afraid to ask those tips and kind of seek guidance as well.
What you should also look at is the professional qualifications that they have. For example, the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, aka CIPS. CIPS. So have they got MCIPS? Have they got level 4? So you can start at level 4, right? That would be the sort of the first. I mean, people do start at. Is there a level 1? There must be a level 1.
There's level 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is basically like you've got no clue about anything in the life at all. Basically, it's for people who have come from like a completely different background. They're really struggling. They might not even have familiarity about business and what business is. So it covers real foundational content. But it's a good entryway for people who are maybe underprivileged or come from a I guess a tougher background.
So you can do levels 1, 2, and 3, or you could start straight at level 4. That would be something that could grow your skill set. You see a lot of job adverts nowadays that don't necessarily say we need you to have MCIPS. They say we want someone who is willing to study towards MCIPS or is already on that journey. And if you can evidence that, I've done my level 4 and I'm willing to start level 5, then that's going to open up a lot more opportunities as well in your career.
I think your reason for doing it has to be right. So you're not doing it just for the next pay rise. You're doing it to improve your general skill set. Obviously, the next pay rise helps. Like, who doesn't want that? But you have to be thinking of, when you're doing it, everything you are picking up, like Mendelow's matrix. I mean, they drill that into you from lesson 1. That's the sort of thing where you think, well, why are they so insistent on that for 3-4 years of content? And you go, well, actually, it's because it's actually really useful and you can use it in your work environment. And if you took like a Mendelow's matrix or stakeholder mapping or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to look at, and present that, like, you apply it to your own organization and present it back, it looks great. Like, it really looks like you're taking on board what you're learning, you've given it a go in practice. So definitely, to go from entry to mid-level, you're probably looking at your qualifications being great. The other thing I would say is, and looking at what Kieran asked, and kind of just how do you progress your career. Exposure is a word you mentioned earlier, Luke, and it's the best thing for any career, I think. And it's not necessarily exposure within your own organization, not necessarily exposure to stakeholders. It's whenever you're doing a CIPS module, say you're in a training school, speak to the other people, just connect with them on LinkedIn, reach out, build your network a little bit. CIPS have different branches, all geographical locations. You can join at CIPS England level, you can join CIPS Middle East and North Africa as a level if you wanted to, but you can also then go to your local branch, which is like CIPS Harrow or CIPS St Albans or CIPS Manchester. And if you do that, you've then got people in your area reasonably close to you who all have a vested interest in procurement and CIPS, and you can see what they're doing in their companies. You can learn off them, you can pick up the material. Yeah.
And there's also potential that, if you connect with them on LinkedIn, they might one day be hiring for a job you find really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can you've already got the relationship with them, unless, like me, you've a half-assed class clown in the CIPS study sessions.
Yeah, I mean, you promoted the podcast, so haven't you, in the CIPS lessons?
I have. I did send you that yesterday, a screenshot. We did a CIPS study session yesterday, and they were talking about Mendeley in that again. And I did promote the ep with Nick from Market Dojo. They were impressed. The tutor, Rick, nice guy. He was impressed that we managed to get someone as high up as the chief operating officer and co-founder.
Well, I think the good thing about Nick, not Rick, the good thing about Nick was that he's when they founded it, there was only a few of them, and it was a pipe dream to play more golf. And at some point somebody else has bought into their idea and supported them, and then they've grown, and he was really supportive. And that goes back to what I was saying a short while ago. You just look for people that have done it, have achieved it, have got to what is something that you aspire to be, and ask them, right? Even though I think Nick reached out to us actually because he liked an episode, but on the back of that we asked him if he'd like to be on an episode. So there's a wonderful saying about, was it you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And procurement is his world. It's what he's built his company on. I mean, tech's probably his world more than procurement, to be fair, even though he's spot on with both of them, and he's more than willing to give us his time. And it's been the same for me with people that I find almost interesting as mentors. So I've got a couple of people in the company I work with at the moment who are acting in a mentor capacity for me, and it's kind of a two-way thing, right? So one of them wants to learn more about contracts and how they work and how they can get a bit more comfortable with them, but I've asked her to teach me about managing difficult stakeholders, so people who are particularly shut off to procurement or shut off, they've already got their preformed opinions and all of that good stuff, and she's not in procurement, but it's that two-way learning, and it's paying off already, to be honest.
Nice, mate. Yeah, I barely see you around much anymore. That's how active you are, fighting like Batman, fighting crime, but fighting what's it called? What's the phrase of like rogue
Rogue
people
suppliers, yeah.
No, I'm talking about internally. Maverick. That's
Mavericks,
it.
yeah.
Fighting off Maverick purchases.
That's it. I mean, it's weird, and sometimes you've got to be selfish, right? So you might be in an organisation where you're not particularly happy, or you're biding your time a little bit, looking for your next role. But you should still try and make the most of what your environment is and what you can do, because there will be good people in any company that you're working for, and if it's not good people in the procurement team, speak to the finance team and learn a little bit more about P&Ls or accounting and how they and pick it all up as you go along. Like, just be a sponge, because that will help you with your own career growth. And what you find is, especially at the senior level, directors are often comfortable talking about other people's roles, areas in a conversation. So they will be familiar with finance P&Ls, they will be familiar with kind of legals, contract reviews and standard contracts, and they will be familiar with profit targets or incentives from a sales perspective. And you kind of look at them and you go, okay, yeah, so they know that strategic input.
Yeah. Their job, one of the parts of their job, say for example for a finance director, a lot of times procurement teams report into finance directors. The finance directors have got to know about procurement as well as the finance element of their job. And I suppose it goes the same for, procurement might incorporate some facilities management in there, for example. Yeah. If you want that high level job, now we're talking about going from mid level to high level, you've got to be able to have those skills across the board, which I think is quite good. And we referenced this in a previous episode with Lee when we did procurement God series.
Oh yeah, the royalty episode.
Where he was talking about in procurement you get a massive range of sort of like a view across the whole business, basically.
Yeah.
And you're expected to have capability in loads of different areas.
Yeah,
I mean, how you kind of grow and progress to
at a senior level you are. Definitely at a senior level. I think at a lower level, you see it in any profession. So if you look at a newly qualified lawyer, they might struggle to articulate legal terms to an everyday Dave. You see what I mean? And we might do the same with our procurement terms. We might reference a particular clause in a contract and panic and not know how to translate that into what it actually means to the business and why it's a problem or why it's an issue. It was really interesting because I was kind of in a fairly senior meeting yesterday, and I mentioned the words prime flow downs, and the senior exec looked at me like, what? And I just took for granted that was something that I just knew as terminology, right? Just taking the contract between us and the customer and then putting some of those terms in our subcontracts. And it's weird because to me that's like common knowledge, but it's absolutely not. So it's all, remember that you do have your own niche and kind of benefits, but it's at a senior level, it's how do you communicate those to the relevant stakeholders. Another thing I'd want to touch on, and I don't know if you do much of this, but kind of online forums. Are you involved in anything like that at the moment?
I do follow, but I don't think I've ever posted on the procurement forum on Reddit. It seems to be quite a lot Americanized, and the way they do things is different to how we do things. But yeah, I do follow a little bit. Why is that?
No, it's quite good. I was going to say the Reddit forum is really interesting, and also the LinkedIn. There's a couple of LinkedIn forums for procurement professionals or LinkedIn groups that are quite big, to be honest. And you see people posting really useful content in there. And again, it's all about soaking information in or just having that interest in. I think to really progress to the senior levels, you do have to be interested in what you're doing as well. Like, you don't just see it as a day job to earn money. You actually you're happy with the value you're giving. You know, you want to be a procurement professional, you want to be the best. But I'd even say to Kieran, you know, progression's not always linear as such. Like you might work your way up to become a senior buyer, right? And then you might go, well, I've learned a little bit about contracts here, I've learned a little bit about finance. I don't really fancy going up to being a supply chain director or a senior supply chain manager or whatever. I might want to try, I don't know, I might want to try law. Yeah. And then you can move sideways, and it might not be an instant progression, but you could then become a lawyer who specializes in procurement, procurement law or whatever, or you could become a finance manager who specifically helps budget for third parties because your company doesn't do it very well.
You could become some sort of emergency worker, like a fireman or ambulance person, or
we are firefighters. Yep.
Firefighter, but only for procurement people.
Very specific.
Yeah. If the office block's on fire, you run up and you only save procurement people. That's specialization.
Yep.
That works.
How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
What is imposter syndrome? Can you give me a definition?
I can't give you. I'll give you an example. It's the feeling of you're not good enough or you're not ready to be in a particular role. So, let's just say I've been a buyer at company A for 3 years. I managed to land myself a job as a senior buyer in company B. I've just started there, and it feels like they know way more than I do.
Yeah, I guess that's natural to be thinking those kind of feelings when you're transferring companies. I think what often gets forgotten when you are kind of like going for a new job, or when you're starting a new job, is not only do you have to remember and know all the procurement technical knowledge, and you have to have the soft skills as well and meet all the new people, but you have to sort of be able to work in a different environment. So on 3 different fronts, you've got to pick up new skills, right? Yeah. And if you're trying to compare yourself to people who've been working there for 5-10 years, of course that's not going to be a fair comparison because they've had a 5-10 year head start on you. I think it's important to kind of not or try, at least, I know it's difficult, try to not compare yourself to other people where possible. And if there are little things that you can do to get to grips with things, like, for example, if the company's got standard contract templates, reading those through to make sure you have an understanding of it before you try and negotiate with a supplier, or getting to grips with the company's processes, sitting down with someone and asking them, how does this process work, or what's that? That could probably help you to kind of reduce what I'm trying to say is basically there's a lot to learn when you're starting in a new company.
Yeah.
What are the ways that you could try and find to kind of build up your knowledge bank? And
I mean, I would say that you've got to where you are. You've been given the job because the people hiring believe you are good enough. So as long as you haven't lied through your teeth to get the job, then
used AI.
Yeah, exactly. Then you are qualified enough or good enough to be in that room just as much as anybody else. And that's the bit you just remind yourself, look, I've got this job because I've earned it because of everything I've done previously. And one thing I am terrible at, and I really, really want to improve, is keeping a tab of what I've done and what I've achieved. Because actually, I don't know if it's a procurement thing, but more often than not, we're quite humble. I don't know if humble is the word, but like, we don't really say that we won the bid, or we don't say that we did X, Y, Z. We're quite often, because we're part of a team, we're providing that kind of guidance and things like that. We're almost achievement shy. And I think actually writing down the things you've been involved with and what you've managed to do, like if you've negotiated a contract with Oracle and managed to get Oracle to change even one standard term, you're a good negotiator, because Oracle don't move for shit, right? And and then you see what you've done and you go, Oh my God, when I first joined as a buyer, I'd never negotiated in my life.
Mm.
But, yesterday I got an SME to agree to our contract and with no amendments or with a few minor amendments, or I had a call about IP and I was comfortable talking about it. And they're all big
Yeah.
things and, you should be proud of it, but it's so easy just to forget to log what you're doing.
My first manager, when I started my first procurement job, said that I should make an Excel spreadsheet and write down all my achievements. I'm
Is it still
kind of
empty?
sad that I didn't do that. It would be the document would be too long. File
Yeah.
corrupted.
I mean, I think so when I look back at the last 4 years for myself personally, I can go, like I've had quite a few changes in my career and I can talk through the CIPS qualification, I can talk through some of my learning points, but actually some of the deals that I've negotiated, I probably would need to go and do some digging again and dig it out and be like, yeah, this is what I've done. And
it's also difficult because sometimes the trouble or the most difficult part is down to the people you're negotiating or the people that sat on the other side of the negotiation table. So it could be, a 50k contract.
Yeah.
That, the supplier just doesn't want to move and it's being really difficult and it's taking ages versus a contract that's £4 million or £10 million when it's actually quite easy. So how do you kind of put that into words, or how do you sort of measure that against other contracts?
Unfortunately, we live in a world where it's all about measuring and actually putting your neck on the line or putting your hand up to volunteer or getting involved in those larger value deals is primarily what's going to stand out. But if you don't get that exposure, you can look at complex deals and you can explain, you had a supplier who was particularly stuck on their IP. They didn't want to share any jointly created IP with the end user. And you negotiated, you explained it to them, you negotiated it, and actually that's a big win for the scenario, but you probably have to talk through it a little bit, as opposed to where you're saying I led a £10 million deal. That automatically sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Even though it was guaranteed and it was the easiest contract you've ever going to have to put in your life. But there's notoriously difficult companies to negotiate with as well. And if you ever do negotiations with those, don't be shy to mention that you've reached a successful outcome, you've got a significant discount, you've put in place deal registrations. And the other thing is total up your spend. So if you're responsible for a category or a particular spend area, it might be £10,000 contracts here and there, but actually when you then put it all together, you're looking at £2 or £3 million annually. And then your CV says, oh, I'm responsible for £2 to £3 million of annual spend for this company. It sounds good, and it is good. It is good. It is something you can be proud of, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, shall we summarize?
Let's summarize.
If we can remember what we said. So we said anyone can get into procurement no matter what your background is.
Yep.
But see if you can use that background, see if you can use what your sort of specialism pre-procurement is to help boost your career. Take on new opportunities with senior people, put your hand up for things, whether that be, leading some sort of smaller project or kind of presentations to senior management, some sort of governance type call. Developing skills like soft skills like communication, negotiation, problem solving.
Yep.
Also hard skills, although would negotiation be a hard skill? Maybe it would be.
I think it could probably be classified as both, yeah. But
develop your soft and hard skills. Also, a way to do that and develop your skills is through professional qualifications like CIPS. There are probably some other ones around negotiation or some sort of, if you are a category manager, some sort of technical courses you can do on whatever your category is based on. And networking as well.
Massive.
Make sure you will try and build up a network, whether that's on LinkedIn, or like me, you just have loads of best mates everywhere.
You never know when it will come in handy. I know it's not always, people don't like to say, it's all about who you know and stuff like that, but actually, if you're making the right connections, people in different careers, in different paths, different businesses, you just never know what's going to happen. You might meet someone, you think, oh my God, they're the driest person I've ever met, I'd never want to speak to them again. But just leave the door open, right? Because they might be looking to set up a procurement function in a brand new company, and they need a procurement transformation director, and they remember you and they liked you. So just leave the door open, and as I say, just networking is really important.
Yeah. And then the other ones I can remember that we said are think about mentoring. If there's someone that you want to be like, or is there a sort of specialism that you want to target as well? Make sure you use them as a mentor. And
so when I say like about wanting to be like, I wouldn't necessarily say, like you might look at me and go, oh, I definitely don't want to be that guy. Like, look at his hairline, it's gone, he's finished. But you might look at me and say, well, he's good with stakeholders, and that might be the bit that you focus on, right? So it's not necessarily like you want to just become that person in their entirety, or you want to, just you might not like some of the bits about some people. You might just want to hone in on their skill set and wonder how they got to where they are, if you think it's something that you would want to be better at, right? For me, I look at you and I think you're great at cardio. So if I needed to know how to sidestep really fast, or wanted to improve my lung game, then I would definitely come to you,
Yeah, if you wanted to know how to give out cards or blow a whistle really hard, then I'm your man. I'm your man, mate. And for you, if I wanted to know how to drop some what's the right word for it? Stink bomb type riz.
I thought you were going to say corporate riz.
Corporate riz. Corporate stink bomb riz. It's like,
that's my niche.
It's quite impressive though, because it does work like a stink bomb. Like it doesn't even have to be directed. It's just all the people in the surrounding area just sort of get kind of like
rizzed up.
Rizzed, yeah.
It's a good thing.
Have I missed anything from the summary?
No, exposure is a good one, and just wanting to be better, or wanting to be in those roles, right? Because we all want great salaries, but actually, some people, it might be enough to be the role they're in, and they might just want to settle, right? But I would say, just write stuff down. If you want to be in 5 years' time, you want to be a procurement director. Write that shit down, make it real, list steps on how you're going to get there. List little things, I'm a member of the CIPS forum, I'm a member of this society or whatever, and build your network, educate yourself, understand what the top 5 things in procurement are going to be for 2025 or 2026. And, AI isn't going away, unfortunately, for you. So get to grips with that. If you learn everything you need to know about AI contracting, laws, IP, what's it doing with your information, what's it doing with your data, what's it doing with security, is it secure enough? Really get involved in AI, because companies are shit scared of it. They're shit scared of what it is doing with your info. So if you can review these contracts, you can provide assurances, you're comfortable in reviewing those kind of agreements, you're ahead of the game. You become a desirable, successful individual, right? But that's not easy. Like, I'm not saying that it's like the easiest thing in the world to do, because it's the forefront of what's coming.
And another big important thing is listening to Let's Talk Procurement podcast. If you can say in an interview, oh yeah, this podcast I listen to called Let's Talk Procurement, then you will automatically get the job. If you say it's Chico time.
No, don't say that.
That's our code phrase.
If you get the QR code that takes you to our show, tattooed on your forehead, you'll get any job ever.
Yeah, that's how it works. All right, cool.
He looks horrified by that thought. Well, look, if anyone else has got any topics they would like us to cover, I think there's still a couple of good ones that have been raised by Kieran that we can cover in future episodes. You can tell that your success and growth in your role is probably linked to stakeholder management as well, because obviously they're the ones who open the doors to your opportunity and your growth. But if you've got any ideas, any questions, anything you'd love us to cover, then drop us a text using the text us function or the socials which were mentioned earlier. Also in the bio. I won't go through them again, but thank you for listening. If you've got this far, drop us a 5-star review, drop us a comment telling us how much you love us, and we'll see you in the next one, probably.
Sounds good. Right. See you later.
See you later.